I played the audio not long ago of the late, great Milton Friedman talking about a pencil. Friedman borrowed that, as he has said, and he said on his show, TV show Free to Choose, and in his book Free to Choose, massive bestseller, and acknowledged that Leonard Read, the late Leonard Read of the Foundations for Economic Education in 1958, had written extensively about the pencil. Now, I want you to think about this. A pencil. He wrote, I pencil my family tree, as told by Leonard Read. I am a lead pencil. The ordinary wooden pencil familiar to all boys and girls and adults who can read and write. I pencil, simple though I appear to be, merit your wonder and awe, a claim I shall attempt to prove. In fact, if you can understand me, no, that's too much to ask of anyone. If you can become aware of the miraculousness which I symbolize, you can help save the freedom mankind is so unhappily losing. I have a profound lesson to teach. I can teach this lesson better than can an automobile or an airplane or a mechanical dishwasher because, well, I seem so simple. Simple? Yet not a single person on the face of this earth knows how to make me. This sounds fantastic, doesn't it? Especially when it's realized that there are about 1.5 billion of my kind of product in the USA each year. More than that now. This was 1958. He wrote, pick me up and look me over. What do you see? Not much meets the eye. There's some wood, lacquer, the printed labeling, graphite lead, a bit of metal, and an eraser. Just as you cannot trace your family tree back very far, so it is impossible for me to name and explain all my antecedents, but I would like to suggest enough of them to impress upon you the richness and complexity of my background, I pencil. My family tree begins with what in fact is a tree, a cedar of straight grain that grows in northern California and Oregon. Now contemplate all the saws and trucks and rope and the countless other gear used in harvesting and carting the cedar logs to the railroad siding. Think of all the persons and the numberless skills that went into their fabrication. The mining of ore, the making of steel and its refinement in saws, axes, motors, the growing of hemp and bringing it through all the stages to heavy and strong rope, the logging camps with their beds and mess halls, the cookery and the raising of all the foods. Why, untold thousands of persons had a hand in every cup of coffee the loggers drink. Now, the logs are shipped to a mill in San Leandro, California. Can you imagine the individuals who make flat cars and rails and railroad engines, who construct and install the communication systems incidental thereto? These legions are among my antecedents. Consider the millwork in San Leandro. The cedar logs are cut into small, pencil-less slats, less than 1/4 of an inch in thickness. These are kiln-dried and then tinted, for the same reason women put rouge on their faces. Rouge, rouge, rouge. People prefer that I look pretty, not a pallid white. The slats are waxed and kiln-dried again. How many skills went in the making of the tint in the kilns, into supplying the heat, the light, the power, the belts, the motors, and all the other things a mill requires? Sweepers in the mill among my ancestors, yes. And included are the men who poured the concrete to the dam of the Pacific Gas and Electric Company hydro plant, which supplies the mill's power. Don't overlook the ancestors present and distant, who have a hand in transporting 60 carloads of slats across the nation. Now, once in the pencil factory, millions of dollars in machinery and building, all capital accumulated by thrifty and saving parents of mine, each slat is given 8 grooves by a complex machine, after which another machine lays leads in every other slat, applies glue, and places another slat atop, a lead sandwich, so to speak. 7 brothers and I are mechanically carved from this wood-clinched sandwich. My lead itself, it contains no lead at all, actually. It's complex. The graphite is mined in Ceylon. Consider these miners and those who make their many tools and the makers of the paper sacks in which the graphite is shipped, and those who make the string that ties the sacks, and those who put them aboard ships, and those who make the ships. Even the lighthouse keepers along the way assisted in my birth. And don't forget the harbor pilots. The graphite is mixed with clay from Mississippi, in which ammonium hydroxide is used in the refining process. Then wetting agents are added, such as sulfonated tallow, animal fats chemically reacted with sulfuric acid. After passing through numerous machines, the mixture finally appears as endless extrusions, as from a sausage grinder cut to size, dried and baked for several hours at 1,850 degrees Fahrenheit. And to increase their strength and smoothness, the leads are then treated with a hot mixture, which includes candelia wax from Mexico, paraffin wax, and hydrogenated natural fats. My cedar receives 6 coats of lacquer. Do you know all the ingredients of lacquer? Who would think that the growers of castor beans and the refiners of castor oil are part of it? They are. Why, even the processes by which the lacquer is made a beautiful yellow involve the skills of more persons than one can even count. Observe the labeling on my pencil. That's a film formed by applying heat to carbon black mixed with resins. How do you make resins, and what, pray, is carbon black? My bit of metal, the ferrule, is brass. Think of all the persons who mine zinc and copper and those who have the skills to make shiny sheet of brass from these products of nature. Those black rings on my ferrule are black nickel. What is black nickel and how is it applied? The complete story of why the center of my ferrule has no black nickel on it would take pages to explain as well. Then there's my crowning glory, inelegantly referred to in the trade as the plug. The part man uses to erase the errors he makes with me. An ingredient called factice is what does the erasing. It is a rubber-like product made by reacting rapeseed oil from the Dutch East Indies with sulfur chloride. Rubber, contrary to the common notion, is only for binding purposes. Then, too, there are numerous vulcanizing and accelerating agents. The pernice comes from Italy. The pigment which gives the plug its color is cadmium sulfide. Does anyone wish to challenge my earlier assertion that no single person on the face of this earth knows how to make me, that is, I pencil? Actually, millions of human beings have had a hand in my creation. No one of them who even knows more than a very few of the others. Now, you may say that I go too far in relating the picker of a coffee berry in far-off Brazil and food growers elsewhere to my creation, that this is an extreme position. I shall stand by my claim. There isn't a single person in all these millions, including the president of the pencil company, who contributes more than a tiny, infinitesimal bit of know-how. From the standpoint of know-how, the only difference between the miner of graphite in Ceylon and the logger in Oregon is in the type of know-how. Neither the miner nor the logger can be dispensed with, any more than can the chemist at the factory or the worker in the oil field, paraffin being a byproduct of petroleum. Here's an astounding fact. Neither the worker in the oil field nor the chemist, nor the digger of the graphite or clay, nor any who mans or makes the ships or trains or trucks, nor the one who runs the machine that does the curling on my bit of metal, nor the president of the company performs this singular task because he wants me. Each one wants me less, perhaps, than does a child in the first grade. Indeed, there are some among this vast multitude who never saw a pencil, nor would know how to even use it. Their motivation is other than me. Perhaps it is something like this. Each of these millions sees that they can thus exchange his tiny know-how for the goods and services he needs or wants. I may or may not be among these items. This is a fact still more astounding. The absence of anyone dictating or forcibly directing these countless actions which bring me into being. No trace of such a person can be found. Instead, we find the invisible hand at work. This is the mystery to which I referred earlier. I pencil am a complex combination of miracles. A tree, zinc, copper, graphite, and on and on. But to these miracles, which manifest themselves in nature, an even more extraordinary miracle has been added. The configuration of created human energies, millions of tiny know-hows configuring naturally and spontaneously in response to human necessity and desire in the absence of any human dictator dictating anything. Since only God can make a tree, I insist that only God can make me. Man can no more direct these millions of know-hows to bring me into being than he can put molecules together to create a tree. So says I pencil. That's a pencil. I want you to think of a private jet. All the devices, all the materials, all the chemicals, all the know-how, all the skill that goes into making a jet. It's what seems like infinite parts, all of it. Obama wants you to focus on the people who fly on jets. He wants you to focus on quote-unquote fat cat executives. What about all the people up and down the chain, horizontal and vertical, who are involved in producing the jet, servicing it, fueling it, its tires, every aspect of it? Tens of millions of people, tens of millions, who are producing everything that's necessary to go on that jet. You see, ladies and gentlemen, when you have a Marxist as a president who does not comprehend or chooses not to comprehend how the real world works, the laws of economics, which are part of the laws of nature, what you have is somebody trying to dictate his personal preferences on top of tens of millions of people. And what he will do is not destroy the executive, the fat cat. That's all for show. That's all for emotion. He's going to destroy you. He's going to destroy you. We're in the midst of nationalizing 1/7 of our economy, our healthcare system. Our two major automobile companies have been in effect nationalized. And by nationalized, I don't mean seized. I mean nationalized. They cannot function without the government dictating to it. Our banks have, in essence, been nationalized while we weren't looking. Wall Street may not know it yet, but it's been nationalized in many respects. Our school systems are being nationalized. Oh, yes, they are. Our credit system, actually, is being nationalized. The reason the housing market is dying and has died in many respects is because that's been nationalized, too. Millions of people being put out of work. Millions of people losing their savings and their investment. Millions of people losing, period. This is what happens when one man, with no knowledge, with no experience, with no competence, driven by a failed and disastrous and deadly ideology, imposes his will. Barack Obama cannot even tell you how a pencil's made. Nobody can. And yet, he wants you to believe he can remake our entire society. Nobody can. Least of whom, him.